In less than 4 weeks, we will have a bracket for college basketball's big dance, the NCAA tournament. 68 teams locked in by March the 18th. But here today, it is time to break down the projections. 4 weeks to go, and we do that, as always, on Fielding 68. I'm Kevin Sweeney. This show brought to you, as always, by Rhythm. Today, joining me, Andy Bottoms, and a new panelist today, Brad Evans. Brad, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me. I think the volume is going to be cranked because, as you can tell, I'm a very sheepish fellow.
Well, it's great to have you. We look forward to your insights on the projected field at 68. This is a big weekend, so it's a good time to have you aboard. And we'll start with you. The top 16 reveal over the weekend gave us a little look at where things stand at the top, but also, if you read into it deep enough, where things might look for the bubble. We can interpret these things a lot of different ways, right? So, Brad, I'll start with you. What was the biggest surprise when you saw that top 16 for the committee?
Yeah, well, San Diego State being on that list, to be frank with you. Look, respect, mad love for the Mountain West Conference, a league that I have donated multiple dollars of sportsbooks on this season and really in past years as well. I love the action in that league. Could get as many as 6 bids this season. And I think there was a strong indication that could be the case, very much on the table, considering that San Diego State was in that reveal. I thought they were for sure going to be a 5 seed, wound up being a projected number 4 seed. And it also speaks to, I think, the overall strength of schedule playing a factor, because you look at SDSU, the Aztecs, number 15 in the country in strength of schedule. Strong net ranking, but that's more or less a sorting tool, kind of like the old RPI. Decent road record, straight up 4-6 in those away matchups. But that was a team that I did not foresee being uttered there on CBS when they had that big reveal. So kudos to Brian Dutcher and San Diego State. The Aztecs looking like a full-blown number 4 seed right now and a chance to climb come Selection Sunday.
Andy, I guess off of that, is that good news for the rest of the Mountain West? I think Colorado State's resume is pretty strong. If San Diego State's is looked at pretty well, certainly, the hope has been a 6-bid Mountain West for people out west. Did San Diego State's ranking embolden those people?
I would think so. I had them in the 5 seed mix as well, in large part because I didn't assume their game on Friday night would matter. I know David Warlock came back at Rocco pretty hard about some of the comments he made about stuff not counting. And so they at least paid lip service to the fact that mattered. We'll see whether that really did or not. So that was surprising to me. I think they had a better argument once they won that game on Friday night. But they were the only team that had any of the 4 team sheet metrics that ranked worse than 20th. And that was the BPI, which, as we all know, hates the Mountain West. And so they were 34th in that. And that's one of the things where I think if you're the Mountain West as a league, you can make the argument that and some of the anomalies that you see there may be discounted a little bit more than you may have expected otherwise. And so I do think that's overall good news for those teams. Now, San Diego State may be different than some of the other teams that really did go out and schedule, particularly in the non-conference, as Brad mentioned, and that has done them some favors in that regard as well.
Big picture, was there a line of thinking, a pattern that you saw develop, Brad, with how the committee ranked these 16 teams that we can translate to the rest of the field?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's all about who you played and who you beat, right? It's your performance against Quadrant 1 competition. Do you have any major blemishes there on the resume, the overall strength of schedule, but not only just the overall number, but I think also how they approach a non-conference play. So, did you go out and challenge your kids? Did you not go the Jim Boeheim, Syracuse old school route of, hey, let's schedule a bunch of cupcakes the first 15 games of the season all at home, and let's see how it shakes out come Selection Sunday. Oh, we're on the bubble yet again. But in this case, I think, many of the teams did the right things that really pleased the committee here at the end. And I think they're really focused on and with a laser focus on some of those factors that Andy already laid out. And I think that is going to be the crux of their arguments inside the selection committee room come, the days leading up to Selection Sunday. I really didn't have a gripe with any of the teams where they put them on the line. The only one that was somewhat questionable, again, to me, was San Diego State.
Andy, on your side, from the scheduling front, seemed like Iowa State was a little bit lower than maybe people would have anticipated. Is that something you read into big picture for bubble teams? I know there's a bunch of teams that we've talked about right around the cut line that played pretty weak non-conference schedules. Does maybe an ounce of disrespect for the Cyclones maybe indicate bad news for those teams?
Yeah, a little bit. I think you could have made an argument for them to be ninth, maybe even eighth, really, if you look at it going into that. So they were the only team that had a strength of schedule worse than in the 170s in the non-conference strength of schedule of the teams that got mentioned on Saturday. So I do think it's fair to say that they were penalized a little bit, maybe a couple spots for that. Which, if you're a Big 12 team, which we talked about I think a week ago. Or in some of the shows last week, there's a number of Big 12 teams who loaded up on quad 4 games in the non-conference, and we'll see how much that really matters for them as you get into it. Carolina was the other one for me that I was really surprised to see them at the 5 spot overall. Just you compare them to some of the other teams around, they didn't seem to do as well in the metrics, didn't have the same high-end wins, had a really good road record. So that was the other one that's odd, and you can kind of look at bits and pieces of what the committee did in this scenario and say, okay, well, this team got penalized for this, or this team didn't get penalized for something else. The North Carolina one was the hard one for me to kind of reconcile and really drive some common theme through what you saw with other teams, just because the other teams that they talked about on the 2 line, just to me going in, they seemed to be behind and didn't really get a great explanation. I think part of the job of the committee chair is to say as little as actually possible during these to really provide insight to anyone on what happened they like Houston's was, they have an elite defense and only 3 losses. Well, we know that. Like that, kind of, it would be good to get more insight on what actually was discussed in the room. But particularly as you got outside of the 1 seeds, they offered up little to no details that would really help you piece stuff together. So you're kind of left to take a snapshot of the metrics, see if you can figure something out. And made it a little bit hard in a couple cases, and Carolina was one for me, that how you reconcile everything they did and how it pertains to them with where they ended up just didn't make a ton of sense to me.
A slightly stumbling North Carolina had that loss to Syracuse obviously last week, but staying at number 5 in the top 16. 2 big opportunities left on the schedule for the Tar Heels: at Virginia coming up on Saturday, and at Duke on the final Saturday of the regular season, March the 9th. So certainly seems, at least, like North Carolina has a shot at a number 1 seed. And we will, as always, reveal our number 1 seeds now for where we're looking. The big change this week is a change for the number 1 overall. UConn takes that top spot from Purdue after dominating Marquette, Purdue losing to Ohio State on Sunday. Those teams, as we've discussed on the show in the past, the number 1 overall, a important moniker, but maybe not so important for the actual path. Both teams have different desires in terms of UConn wanting to play through the Northeast and Purdue through the Midwest. Then Houston, our number 3 overall team in Arizona, stays as the number 4. So that is our top 4. Brad, is there a team you felt was close to cracking that 1 line, or did you have a potential shakeup there for that top spot?
No, I think we're locked and loaded with those 4 teams on the number 1 seed line. Honestly, there was no drama, so to speak, with that kind of reveal. All the expectations were going in one direction only. It was going to be those 4 squads. It's going to be UConn. Purdue is going to be number 1 seed, despite the blip that they had against the Ohio State. I have to say that for copyright purposes, otherwise they're going to come after me. And they did my Illini a solid as a result, did the Buckeyes in that one. But Houston be on the number 1 seed line, and even if they have a fumble and wrench their ankle tonight against Iowa State, I still think, given how rough and rugged the Big 12 is, and given the volume and body of work with all the quality victories they have, strength of schedule, all that jazz, they're going to be there on the number 1 seed line. Arizona is the only one that maybe you can make an argument against because they have that black eye, that quadrant 3 loss against Oregon State there on the resume. But the number 2s, obviously, to have to come into play, going to have to do a ton of work, I think, to usurp them on that top line, just handle business down the stretch. And I think the 4 teams we saw there in the mockumentary are going to be the 4 teams we see on Selection Sunday as number 1 seeds.
Any disagreement there, Andy? Or if nothing else, do you have a team or two in mind that you think have a path to make things interesting, to push Arizona or Houston or even Purdue for that last number 1 spot?
Yeah, just quickly in terms of the top overall seed, I actually still had Purdue there. I think you can make an argument either way, but they're better than UConn in 3 of the 4 team sheet metrics. They've got 3 wins against the net, top 10, compared to 1 for UConn. They've got 7 against the net, top 25, compared to 4 for UConn. I think if you factor the eye test in, I think it's fair to put UConn there. I just think still with a lot of what the committee looks at, I felt like Purdue still had the slight edge, but I can't say any more nice things about Purdue as an IU grad. So we'll move on to your actual question, which was about the other teams. I think they each have some unique opportunities. If you look at Carolina, for as much as I said, hey, I don't know if they belong at the number 5 overall spot, but they're there right now. So you got to take that as the starting point. And they have road games at Virginia and at Duke with 3 home games in between. So if they win out, they get a couple really quality road wins. I think you can make an argument there if somebody falls. Tennessee, they've got a game they really can't lose at Missouri, but they still have games against Auburn, at Alabama, at South Carolina, and Kentucky at home, also Texas A&M at home. So lots of opportunities for them. And then Kansas, obviously, anybody in the Big 12 is going to have tons of opportunities down the stretch. They still go to Baylor and to Houston with some other home games there. So I think any of those could have a path, because if you look at an Arizona, they've got Washington State coming in this week, but otherwise they're not playing teams that are in the field from here on out. So it gets a little bit tricky for them to really bolster their resume. Only chances for them to stumble, and the teams behind them all have some, and in some cases, a lot of opportunities to maybe leapfrog them if they win out.
Brad, last thing on the 1 seeds. Houston is in good position, as you said, but a lot of other really good Big 12 teams. The question is there a great one? Can Kansas or Baylor or Iowa State? Is there a path for one of those teams to emerge, or is the Big 12 just too rough and tumble for a second 1 seed?
Yeah, look, I think there is certainly a chance. We don't know what exactly the percentage is. Is it like 5%, 10%, 15% higher that, one of those teams behind Houston right now could step up and take them down as a number 1 seed? Maybe it's Kansas, despite their visible flaws and really some of the flaws they have on the resume overall, especially away from Lawrence and that sub-500 record. I think here in the end, because it is rough, it's rugged, it is tumble, it's rock'em, sock'em robots every damn night in that league. It's going to be really hard, I think, for the Big 12 if Houston falls by the wayside, for them maybe to secure a number 1 seed, because they're just bludgeoning themselves over and over and over again. It really doesn't matter. I mean, we can preach and really argue this until we're blue in the face. Who's going to be that? As you guys know, to draw more than anything else. What is that path of opportunity and path to Glendale in the Final Four this season? We will throw everything out the window once that Selection Sunday show begins on Sunday night, and we're having to reassess how the field really shook out.
Well, to make that push to Glendale, you have to get in the field, and that's where we will go next on Fielding 68. Bubble time. Last 4 in, first 4 out. We will talk all of that when we come back on Fielding 68.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 as we all get ready for the best month of the year, March Madness. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD150 and you will get $150 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $5 of your hard-earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD150. That's FIELD150. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $150 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD150 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available in one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in Philly or New York, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create a new account in each state. It's easy, it's simple, and it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the conference tournaments and for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and my personal favorite, a nice little parlay boost here and there. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today.
Field of the 68 brought to you by Rhythm. I am Kevin Sweeney, joined today by the bracketologists themselves, Andy Bottoms, Brad Evans. It's time for Bubble Talk. And so this is fun. So this is just like the selection show itself, where I, the presenter, do not see the bracket until it's out. So I do not know what's coming. That makes things a lot of fun. And I've been promised by my producer, the only man who knows the true field, that there is a surprise on this last four in, first four out category. So I'm excited for that. But let's start, Andy, with yours. Let's see your last four in, and we'll see maybe if that surprise starts to become apparent.
Well, I don't think it's with mine, as best I can surmise from our talk before the show. But I had Nebraska, Ole Miss, Utah, and Seton Hall in. Nebraska, the two hot button issues for them, they're 1-7 in true road games, and their non-conference strength of schedule is 324. So we talked a little bit about the importance of non-conference strength of schedule earlier. Metrics-wise, they look decent. I think they're relatively safe compared to some of these other teams, but they do need to find a way to win a game or two on the road. They still have road games left at IU, at Ohio State, and at Michigan, so all potentially winnable. And really, their overall schedule to close out is not terrible, so it could end up 5-0. Ole Miss, we talk about in this segment basically every week. Great resume metrics, although they're getting a little bit worse. Really poor quality metrics, poor non-conference strength of schedule. But it certainly seems like the way the committee looked at the resume metrics for the reveal, it seems hard to think that they would get left out with a resume metric average of 23.5, but we'll see. They could certainly play their way out from here on out. Utah got that buzzer beater, just beautiful play design on that final play to beat UCLA. Otherwise, they would have remained out. For them, they have 8 wins against the top 2 quadrants, which I think is more than other teams generally in this area. They scheduled aggressively, ended up with a 29th ranked non-conference strength of schedule, and that road win was just their second of the season, so helped to erase a potential blemish for them. If you look at their schedule, though, they don't have a lot of great opportunities to get marquee wins. They do go to Colorado and to Oregon, so they just need to not stub their toe. And then Seton Hall just hangs right around, was able to come back and win at St. John's. In a really big game for them. Resume metrics are just under 50 as an average. The quality metrics are not great, but they've got 5 quad 1 wins and 7 against the top 2 quadrants and 6 road wins overall. A team that's beaten UConn and Marquette seems hard pressed to be left out, but their remaining schedule is tough too. They've got Butler at home, then they go to Creighton and to UConn in the next couple. So their grip on it's pretty tenuous, but one of a lot of Big East teams right there around the cut line.
The Big East may be the place to be if you are a fan of watching the bubble. I think our bracketologists will spend far too much time sweating out those teams near the cut line. Brad, over to you. What does your last four in look like?
All right, let's go ahead and get to the list here. Give me the Nevada Wolfpack top of the list, and I think they have considerable distance being one of the last 4 in, and then following with the Yar Shiver Me Timber Seton Hall Pirates. And Eddie and I think, are really kind of rarities right now, according to the bracket matrix. Only about 25 of the people that are polled in that exercise. There's 150 bracketologists actually have the Pirates in, but put some damn respect on their name despite their independent net ranking north of 60. Eddie already outlined the strong road record of the 6 wins that they got there. Not only that, too, but they're a squad that's 5-5 against quadrant 1 competition. Yeah, the 2 blemishes with the Q3 losses on the resume, the 240 non-conference strength of schedule, but I feel they have done enough to be in the field. Then there's Utah, and I agree with Andy. They just got to win, baby, heading down the stretch, and really they got to sweep the remaining games. They cannot fall flat against Colorado there on the road, or at Oregon State, or at Oregon. And then Providence there as my very last team in. You're right. Dayton could be a whole bunch of, Big East representatives there in the end, but a team, again, 4-6 against quad one competition. I have the non-conference strength of schedule around 240 overall. The road record at 2-6, rather unsightly. They have work to do, but they got opportunities at Marquette and, of course, at home in the last game of the regular season against monster UConn. So maybe get a win against those two mammoths, and I think they're going to feel pretty good about their chances to dance come Selection Sunday.
And remember, the cut line is a moving target because of all of the potential bid stealers and auto bids. I know last week we were discussing Richmond being the A10's placeholder, that taking a bit away from the cut line. South Florida certainly playing into that mix right now in the American. So if you're the last team in right now, it's certainly not a comfortable place to be. But I imagine if you're there, if you're a Providence fan, you'd rather be there than the opposite side of things. So let's reveal now our consensus last four in. So this is our team of bracketologists, and we start with Seton Hall, a team that both our guys on the show today had in. Good news for producer Dagan. His Pirates stay in the field at 10-5 in the league. New Mexico getting very close to the cut line. I believe that's the surprise. The Lobos have great metrics and some big-time wins, but have done most of their work at home. Good news for them, though. They did win at Nevada last week, which sets them up well. Huge game coming up on Wednesday against Colorado State at the Pit. Be there or be square. Ole Miss, the next to last team in the field, sticking in after that close game against Missouri over the weekend, and then Gonzaga, our final team in. Very interesting right around the cut line. Brad, I heard your reaction. New Mexico around the cut line. How big a surprise is that for you?
Shocking, guys. My eyes just popped out of my head. I really don't understand why New Mexico is one of the last four in. And if that were to shake out that way, I would probably be throwing things at the television screen, because I have New Mexico right now pegged to be a number 8 seed, a single-digit seed. And there you just saw as a potential one of the members of the first four. Makes no sense whatsoever. You mentioned the Sterling road record, above 500 that they have, including that monster win that they logged there in Reno against Nevada. Very strong metrics really overall. Only one blemish really on the resume, a Q3 loss of their name. Sure, they got a little bit more work to do, really solidify their position. But, when things really shake out come Selection Sunday, I think you're looking 8, 9, 10 minimum probably for New Mexico. They will not be sweating and pooling up in all the wrong places come when the committee makes their announcement and the field is revealed there on CBS.
So, Andy, I take it you also were pretty positive on New Mexico compared to our consensus. That being said, each of the last 2 years, the Mountain West has sent one of its at-large teams when it's gotten 4 bids to date. 2 years ago it was Wyoming. Last year it was Nevada. Now we're talking 5, 6 bids for this conference. Is it inevitable that at least one Mountain West team gets sent to the first 4?
I think particularly if they get 6, it's almost a certainty. They've really, in large part, beaten up on one another. I know Brad mentioned Nevada. I had them just a couple spots clear of Dayton, so they're right in that mix as well. I agree on New Mexico. I was surprised by that. I had them as my last 9 seed, so even lower on him than Brad. But I think it sounded like from Dagan that somebody didn't have him in at all, so that when he averages out the results had something to do with it. So I feel like Rocco had them and talked about them in his last 4 in a couple times. So not really sure, but yeah, they really only have the one bad loss. Sure, they've lost some tough road games in the league, but overall the metrics look pretty solid. So surprising there, but I think they're going to beat up on each other enough where you've got Boise kind of in that mix. You've got Nevada there. Maybe New Mexico drops a little bit. I'd be hard pressed if they got 6 to think that all 6 of them are clear of Dayton, and potentially even if they only get 5, I could see one of them going there. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
All right, let's look through the first 4 out. Good news for the Mountain West. It seems like it was a good day for on fielding 68 for those teams. We'll see if Selection Sunday is so lucky. But Brad, can you take us through the teams that just missed your field of 68?
Yeah, just missed the cut. I got Cincinnati topping my list, followed by a team with a very sterling record in terms of making NCAA appearances, and that could be in jeopardy with the Gonzaga Bulldogs and Wake Forest. Really a considerable distance at third, and then I had to insert somebody at four. I said, what the hell, Colorado? Why not? I don't feel good about the Buffs outside of their 42 net ranking, 73 overall strength of schedule. They only got one quadrant one win, and 2-7 on the road straight up this season. So they're looking like NIT material, pending what happens here down the home stretch. Wake Forest really in a similar vicinity there. Gonzaga is the one to come on the fence on. And I think really the key here is this. The Zags play in the West Coast Conference, number 11 or 12, looking at some of the advanced analytics sites in terms of the power ranking for that league. And I think it really drags them down. They only have that huge win. I mean, it was a big one at Rupp Arena, but really outside of that, it's just such a or my kids would say mid resume that they possess. Obviously at San Francisco, at St. Mary's to finish the regular season, and those games are enormous for them. And you could make an argument for Cincinnati being in over, say, a Providence, but I think what really drags the Bearcats down is the number 305 non-conference strength of schedule. I mean, they played the Sisters of the Motherless Poor pre-Big 12 slate, and I think in the bitter end, that is not going to do them well here in the selection room, in the days leading up to Selection Sunday.
If you're a Gonzaga fan, you are probably also the biggest Kentucky fan there is. So that Kentucky win at Auburn over the weekend is certainly a good sign for Gonzaga's hopes of sneaking into the field, but certainly right around the cut line, as Brad said. Andy, take us through your first four out. Who just missed the cut for you?
Yeah, so lots of overlap here, so I won't dig too much into these. My first team out was Providence. I know that was Brad's last team in. The only thing that I would mention in addition to what he brought up is, one, the Bryce Hopkins injury, which everyone has talked into the ground at this point.
Yeah.
But more than that for me is 7-9 in non-Q4 games. So they've got 10 wins in quadrant 4 as of today. And even if you take the Hopkins part out and just look at their resume as it is, their results-based average is 55, which isn't great when you look at some of the messages it felt like the committee was sending over the weekend. Gonzaga, I have them right there as well. Struggle with high resume metric average, 57.5. The quality metrics are great, but they have one win against the team in the field, and that's that Kentucky win. Their next two best wins are San Francisco at home and Syracuse on a neutral floor. So they've got 3 of their last 4 on the road and need to perform well in those games. Cincinnati, I had right there next to them, just as Brad did. Really nothing more to add other than what he said. They've got opportunities is a good thing for them playing in the Big 12, so they still go to TCU, to Houston, to Oklahoma. So they've had a couple solid road wins already at BYU and at Texas Tech. They just need more overall wins. 8 of their wins sit in Q4. And then I had Villanova as the last team. I agree. There's just kind of a gap between when you get past some of these other teams. Put them there in large part. They're now back to 3 games over 500, which is helpful. Non-conference strength of schedule is 85th, so not terrible there. 6-7 in road neutral games. Wins over Carolina, at Creighton, Texas Tech on a neutral as well. So they've got some good wins. The challenge is they've got 3 quad 3 losses. And so you got to figure out how to overcome those by being enough over 500. And they've got plenty of opportunities. They still travel to UConn, Providence, and Seton Hall and host Butler and Creighton. So 5 games that can move the needle for them down the stretch. If they're able to perform well in those, the resume metrics catch up to the quality metrics, and they make a more compelling case to be in the field.
Yeah. Season-defining week ahead for this Villanova team against Butler and UConn. We'll see if they can move the needle and get back into our bracketologists' good graces. Let's reveal now our first 4 out consensus, starting with Providence, a team that I think will be sweating all the way down to the finish line. Then Utah, coming off a split on their trip to Southern California against USC and UCLA. Cincinnati, and then that Villanova Wildcats bunch. I know this is something we've talked about on other shows, Andy, but that you mentioned that 3 over 500 plateau. Can you take us through a little bit more just what you're looking for, just from an overall record standpoint, for Villanova to ensure they're in the mix for selection?
Yeah, I had this written up. I don't have the notes with me, so I'll have to go off memory, which is always dangerous. But I think the last team to make it at just 2 games over 500 was early 2000s. And so really since the field has been what it is now, that really hasn't happened. And even at 3 games over 500, there were a few teams that made that in the COVID year, where you had all kinds of missed games due to illness and canceled games and different things like that, where I'm not sure you can look at that year through the same lens as you look at the others. So really there's just very little precedent for it. And I think where there has been precedent, teams have played really, really tough schedules and they just racked up a ton of high-end losses. In Villanova's case, 3 of those fall in quad 3. So I'm not sure they even have that same argument to make. But historically, being at least 3 over is basically a necessity at this point. And so they've got to get at least to that point. And so that assumes they're going to lose at least 1 in the Big East tournament. If they sit where they are right now, that would put them at 2 over. And again, there's just not a lot of precedent for that to be for them to be included at that kind of record.
Thank you, sir. That is the bubble. So we have summarized the bubble, the number 1 seeds. Now it's time to take a deeper dive. When we come back, Kentucky stock up, South Carolina stock down, and Washington State trending for a first NCAA tournament appearance in over 15 years. All when we come back on Field 68.
There is nothing in sports better than the heart of the college basketball season, which is why I need to tell you guys about our partners over at Rhythm. If you're into sports betting, you need Rhythm, the place for data-backed props and picks. For those that are unfamiliar, Rhythm, spelled RITHMM, is the go-to mobile app for player props and game picks. Backed by AI predictive models, Rhythm helps you make smarter and faster betting decisions across all sports, but particularly college hoops, where there are as many as 150 games a day during conference play, many of which have softer lines at BetMGM than you'll find in the NFL or the NBA. With Rhythm, you get data-backed picks for every Division I game every day. Users get free picks daily with the ability to upgrade to unlimited access. And for those of you already using modeling, you can build custom sports betting models within the Rhythm app itself. I am a Rhythm user, and I found that I've been a better bettor when I focus on lines where my gut and Rhythm's modeling are aligned. When I think UConn can cover on the road against Butler and Rhythm backs that up, we fire. But Rhythm also helps lead you to plays that you didn't know you needed to make. Like, for example, when the data says bet the over in UMass Lowell versus New Hampshire because you have a 61% edge on that line, you bet the over and you bink. So if you want to increase your edge and win more bets, go to the link in the description below and download Rhythm today. That's RITHMM, the place for data-backed props and picks.
Fielding the 68, brought to you by Rhythm. I am Kevin Sweeney, joined by Andy Bottoms and Brad Evans, working our way through the projected field of 68. And folks, I think it was kind of moving week in the SEC. A lot of action, teams separating themselves as contenders versus pretenders. And a team that probably moved the needle more than anyone was Kentucky. Kentucky, all of a sudden, the resume didn't look so hot after that 3-game home losing streak, but turned it around in a big way. Won at Auburn over the weekend, an elite win. One of those high quad 1 wins, I believe is the terminology I've been hearing from a lot of you guys on this show the last several weeks. So Brad, I shoot it to you. How big a move did Kentucky make with that big win?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really solidified themselves at a minimum as a 6 seed. You could have an argument as a 5 seed. I have them right now as the highest number 6 seed on the bracket big board at thegamingjuice.com. And I mean, look at the overall resume, number 22 in terms of the net ranking. That's outstanding. But just number 66, kind of mediocre there in terms of strength of schedule. 3 wins against quadrant 1 competition. That is all. They do have the bad loss, that Wilmington loss at home on the resume. Decent non-conference schedule, 167. And a very good true road record at 5-2. I look at the remaining schedule. You got opportunities, so bolster the resume. You got Alabama, that game being there at Rupp. You're at Mississippi State, another Bubblicious team, and a key matchup there in the SEC. Then you finish with Arkansas, Vandy. That's not going to help except hurt you if you were to sub your toe there at home. And then they finish with a bang at Tennessee. Somehow could get a win there in Knoxville against the Vols, and you could be looking at maybe a 4 seed in the end, pending upon the outcome and how they perform there in the SEC tournament. So obviously a team I think is, starting to right the ship defensively. We need to see some consistent efforts there. But if they showed what they did, limiting Auburn to just 0.85 points per possession, and they carry that momentum in a future matchups here down the home stretch, Kentucky, woo, baby, that is a team with Final Four potential.
Yeah, certainly did not look like a team you wanted to play as a 7 or an 8 seed where they were projected, I believe, last weekend. So a big jump up for Kentucky. On the other side, a drop down for South Carolina. I mean, this is a team that I think we woke up on Saturday morning unsure if we'd see them in that top 16 reveal. Metrics weren't great, but the wins are just phenomenal. The road win at Tennessee, obviously. But Andy, losing at home against LSU, that knocks South Carolina down quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, they were my top 7 seed this time. Could have made an argument to have them on the 6th line, but they're essentially the inverse of teams with a high resume average, like or they're very similar to Ole Miss. Sorry, is what I meant to say. So high resume metric average, low quality metric average, and we've seen teams like that over the course of the season. Like Memphis was in that situation earlier. The results kind of caught up with what the quality metrics were trying to tell us. And with South Carolina's remaining schedule, the same thing could happen there. They still go to Ole Miss, to Texas A&M. They host Florida and Tennessee, and then they go to Mississippi State as well. So 5 really tough games, which could help solidify their spot in the field. Or if they don't perform well in those, they could drop even further. Non-conference strength of schedule is 282nd, so not great there. But you can't deny they're 7-3 in the top 2 quadrants compared to some other teams. So that's where those resume metrics are still pretty good. And so they're just a tough team to figure out. And again, I just view it as a little bit of the lens of a Memphis that we saw earlier on. The resume metrics were great. They were protected seed range at some point, and all of a sudden the results have caught up with those. And if we see a similar thing with South Carolina, you're going to continue to see them fall down the seed list.
Yeah, just quickly, Andy. I mean, that schedule is brutal, right? Like, I'm not suggesting that it's likely that they lose out, but like, if South Carolina lost out, would they still be in the tournament?
Probably depends by how much the metrics take a hit in those in terms of the way they lose. If they go and lose close games, their metrics aren't going to tank from a quality perspective, and in some cases it might actually help. If they go out and get smoked in a bunch of those games, though, I do think they plummet toward where you see a team like South Carolina or like Ole Miss right now is right in that last 4 in type territory. So I think if that happens, you could see that, but I think it depends as much on how they lose and not just if they lose.
Well, the Gamecocks, to be clear, we're not suggesting that impending doom is coming to Columbia, but a weekend to forget, certainly, for the Gamecocks of South Carolina. Let's pivot over to the Big 12. And Brad, it feels like every week when I come on this show and I read through the seed list, it's just musical chairs with a lot of these teams in the middle of the Big 12. You have a good win, you move up. Texas Tech, TCU. You move down. Oklahoma loses at home. Kansas. All right, we'll drop you down a spot. BYU loses to Oklahoma State. All right, they drop down a seed line, right? It feels like everyone's moving in this kind of 6 through 10 seed line. It's been hard for anyone to break through moving up. It's been hard for anyone to really push down towards the bubble because everyone's getting solid wins throughout this process. Are these teams all just sort of stuck there, or is there some movement possible either up towards that top 16 or down towards the bubble cut line?
I think it's going to be more mishmash and mediocrity. That's really what it is. And that speaks to the depth and the talent of the Big 12 conference. I mean, like I told you, it's rock'em, sock'em, robots every damn night. We're going to see that tonight between Iowa State and Houston. And, it's going to be more of the same when, Oklahoma goes up, say, like against a Texas or TCU and Texas Tech playing tomorrow night. You're going to be jockeying for position, but it's like 1 or 2 seed lines. I don't really see anybody that's within that 6 seed to 10 seed range in this league suddenly just kind of breaking away from the pack and trying to push the upper echelon of this league. I think it's going to be exactly how it's going to shake out by the time the bracket is revealed on Selection Sunday. You're just going to have a boatload of Big 12 teams that are going to show up on the 6, the 7, the 8, and 9 line. Maybe one there, hovering around the 10 seed line in the bitter end. But, that's just kind of the statement and state of that league overall. Night in, night out, they just beat each other up like crazy.
team we don't mention in that group is Kansas State, and they weren't even in our first four out this week, but a team that has sort of hovered around the bubble, has wins over Baylor and Kansas, some bubble teams that they beat. During non-conference play, they beat Providence on a neutral court. They beat Villanova on their home court. Loss over the weekend at home to TCU felt pretty tough for their hopes of going to the tournament, just the way the Big 12 shakes out. How important is tonight on the road at Texas if they have any hope of pushing back towards the cut line?
Yeah, it's pretty huge. I mean, their remaining schedule, like any Big 12 team, is not very easy, but they have at Texas, BYU at home, West Virginia at home, at Cincinnati, at Kansas, and home against Iowa State. So, like any of them, there's opportunities, but just can be brutal there. And that's why when you look at, to your previous question, some teams with maybe a little bit of upward mobility, I look for the teams that don't have games left against Houston or Kansas. So Texas Tech, their toughest games are all at home from here on out. They host Baylor, Texas, and TCU, but they don't play Houston or Kansas. Texas is the opposite. They still go to Kansas, to Texas Tech, and to Baylor. So you kind of look at who plays Iowa State, who plays Baylor, who plays Houston and Kansas, and if you play them relatively less than the others, you've got a little bit of room to move. And so I think Texas Tech maybe is one that could get out of that mix. But otherwise, they all just beat each other up, and you turn around and you won one, you lost one, and you end up kind of right back where you started.
Obviously, these are at the margins, but KenPom does project Texas Tech as a slight favorite in every game it plays the rest of the way in the regular season. If that happens, I would think that the Red Raiders have an opportunity to move pretty quickly, and an 11-7 finish, even, which is a 4-2 close for Texas Tech in that league, I feel like is worth some praise. One team that is certainly worth a lot of praise this season, maybe the biggest surprise in college basketball, is Washington State. Washington State has essentially no basketball history, or at least any sustained success as a basketball program. Left behind in this conference realignment wave, and here they are after another swept weekend in the Pac-12, sort of inching their way up the seed list and dodging some of the bubble conversations. I mean, Brad, how safe is Washington State? Are they comfortably in the field as of today?
They're set on firm, not spongy ground as it stands right now. I got them projected as a number 10 seed, and a pretty solid number 10 seed at that. I mean, you got your net ranking at 37. Overall strength of schedule was outstanding at number 31. You got 4 quad one victories, which are obviously going to have a lot of sway there in the selection committee room. Only one black eye there on the resume, Q3 or Q4 loss. Non-conference strength of schedule really didn't challenge themselves, but a lot of teams kind of in that 10, 11 seed area did very similar cupcakes that they put on the schedule in non-conference play. Number 302 in NCSOS, but they are 5-3 straight up in true road games. And you look at the rest of the season schedule, they only have one more quad one opportunity. It's a massive one at Arizona, but you should be able to beat Arizona State on the road, take care of business there. Then you finish with UCLA and Washington all at home. I think they're going to finish on a very high note and could wind up on that 8-9 line, maybe as high as a 7, depending upon what the other variables of play here. But the Cougs are certainly a team that deserve their fair share of stakes this year and really outperform people had expectation-wise preseason.
I think my favorite statistic that someone sent me the other day about Washington State is that 3 coaches before Kyle Smith have taken Washington State to the NCAA tournament since World War II. All 3 of them, George Raveling, Kelvin Sampson, and Tony Bennett, went on to win National Coach of the Year at another program down the line. So Kyle Smith, he has certainly earned his fair share of flowers for the run that they have had so far this season. When we come back, we will have more big picture thoughts on the field of 68, sorting through the Big Ten, who's safe, who's not, and a couple of big movers over the weekend, big wins, big losses. Getting through all of that in our final segment. Don't go anywhere on Fielding the 68.
Big news, guys. I am thrilled to announce that we have partnered with Autograph, a company founded by the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. The Autograph fandom app gives you access to the best college hoops content, fan contests, and exclusive rewards like discounted tickets, all for doing the things that diehard fans like you already do, following your favorite team in the news and listening to podcasts just like this one. When Tom, and yes, I am calling him Tom, we're on a first name basis these days, co-founded Autograph, he had one mission in mind: change the fan experience for the better. It works like this: you get all of your college hoops content you want in one place. You get articles from your favorite writers, pods from your favorite hosts, contests from your favorite creators, all on the feeds and the sites that you already enjoy. But instead of having to go to all these different places, it all comes to you in one spot, the Autograph Fandom app. But here's the best part: the more content that you consume, the higher you rank in the app. As you consider the level up in status on the app, you can unlock unique rewards curated exclusively for you. So download the free Autograph app in the App Store and use the referral code F68, that's F68, or tap in at the link in the description below or in the podcast app of your choosing to start earning points for doing something as normal as listening to this very podcast. It really is that simple.
Bringing it home on Fielding the 68 with some quick hitters. I'm Kevin Sweeney, Andy Bottoms, Brad Evans alongside me, and this is a Big Ten alumni panel that we've got for Fielding the 68 today. I'm a Northwestern grad, Andy IU, Brad Illinois. So only one of us a bubble team right now, and that is my Wildcats. But we have a lot to sort through in the Big Ten, an interesting couple of weeks ahead. I guess I'd start with you, Andy. My Cats played your Hoosiers over the weekend. It was a road win for Northwestern at Assembly Hall. I'm not saying this to rub it in your face. I'm just saying it from a bracket standpoint. That Northwestern had struggled on the road this season, right? Like, it's no secret. They've done most of their work at home. It's pretty important for them to find a way to win that game, and I think probably solidify themselves a little bit more comfortably into the field.
Yeah, I think for them, and you can't hurt me. I'm already dead inside from the IU season at this point, so it's fine. Say whatever you want. I think IU sets up to help Nebraska here on Wednesday, who also, as I said earlier, desperately needs a road win. So they may be maybe setting up to help the league out as a whole. But I do think it was important for Northwestern to get another road win, and also to be able to get one with Barry out, to be able to continue to show here's who this team can be with him out of the lineup. Langborg was outstanding with Bowie on the bench in foul trouble early on, and their remaining schedule sets up relatively well. They've got Michigan, Iowa, and Minnesota at home. They go to Maryland and to Michigan State. So everybody in the Big Ten is roughly the same record in the league, but at least if you look at how it sets up, that helps them to get another road win. But they've got a relatively favorable schedule down the stretch to give themselves hopefully a little bit of breathing room as they get down the stretch.
Andy mentioned Nebraska going to Indiana on Wednesday, and that being a Nebraska team that has struggled mightily away from home. They have lost their last 6 road games all in Big Ten play. Brad, that's never a good sign with the committee, right? Like, you have to find a way to win some on the road. So how important is it that they finish strong here and get 1, maybe even 2 road wins in these final 3 Big Ten road trips?
Yeah, if you're a little nervous right now in Lincoln, Nebraska, I think you got to get the 2 road wins to feel really positive and confident going into Selection Sunday. Your team's name is going to be muttered there on air on CBS. Hopefully Tominaga time is indeed going to show up. Nearly knocked off my Illini in Champaign. Of course, Illinois took care of business there in overtime. That would have been a marquee victory, to say the least. I mean, look at the nuts and bolts of the resume. Number 49 in terms of the net efficiency. Number 61 in strength of schedule. 3-6 in terms of quarter ones. Really have many black eyes there on the resume in quarter 3, quarter 4, but non-conference strength of schedule. Another drag on the overall profile. Number 324. You mentioned that 1-7 record away from Lincoln. You're at Indiana. You got Minnesota, at Ohio State. You're against Rutgers. You're at Michigan. A whole lot of not great opportunities. Ohio State, if things shake out the net, is likely going to be a quarter 1 opportunity for them. That is the critical game. That's the one you got to circle. You got to star if you're a Husker fan, because if they can secure that one and take care of business against some of the meat competition that they have remaining, get maybe just like a win, just one. That's all you need there in the Big Ten tournament. Again, you will not be pooling up in all the wrong places on Selection Sunday.
Nebraska's lack of overall success in March Madness over its long history of playing basketball is well documented. So hopefully this is the year for the Huskers to break through. Do that, they got to find a way to win on the road. Andy, rounding out our Big Ten talk, Michigan State with a pair of road wins over the last week. Neither of those games, Penn State and Michigan, not teams that are huge threats, not overly dynamic teams, but how much does that help Michigan State start to climb up the seed list? It feels like they've started to establish themselves at least above the fray from a bubble standpoint.
Yeah, the quality metrics have been good throughout the season, and that's been the one thing that's kept them in the conversation, even when they weren't winning games. And then the schedule has lightened up a bit for them. They've performed well in those games. They got the big win over Illinois, and so now the record is starting to look a little bit more like what you'd expect. They're 3-7 in quad one, 8-9 overall in the top two quadrants. So starting to see the results get in line with that a little bit. That being said, they really only have 3 wins over teams that are in the field at this point, and that being the Illinois win, Baylor, and then Butler. So they could stand to get more of those. The challenge for them is they go to Purdue in a couple games from now, and then they host Northwestern. Those are the only 2 games remaining on their schedule that are against teams that would be in the field. So they could still have a little bit of work to do. But I think overall, 20th in the net, really solid quality metrics. Seems like they're relatively safe if they can win the games they're supposed to win as we head down the stretch. And I think they could easily go 4-1 during that stretch. And I think that would really solidify things for them if they're able to do that.
And Brad, I believe it was in your contract with us that we gave you a bit of time to talk about the Illini and where they stand from a selection standpoint. Obviously, just big picture in the Big Ten, potentially now a chance to make a push for a Big Ten championship. But how do you see the Illini's bracket hopes looking right now?
Oh, yes. ILL! I had to sneak that out there, guys. Obviously, it was in my contract. You look at Illinois and try to speak as objectively as humanly possible here. They'll shove Illinois memorabilia decorating my shelves here behind me. This is looking like a high seed right now, and about a week or two ago, they kind of had a rookie resume, one that was a little bit spongy, not on the most stable ground, but with 4 quadrant ones to the name, overall strong strength of schedule. I think Illinois, and especially with some opportunities at Wisconsin, and the one that everybody, and I'm probably going to have to sell my soul to the devil to get tickets for at State Farm Center, the rematch against Purdue coming up on March 5th, that actually could be for a or we'll see the outright Big Ten title, which would be their second since 2022. So Coleman Hawkins playing at a very high level. Terrence Shannon's back to his All-American ways. Marcus Domask in that booty ball, backing dudes down, old school kind of game with that fadeaway jumper. Playing better defensively here the last couple of games. They're at Penn State, a bit of a pitfall game coming up on beat the meek and somehow win against the mighty. Could land as maybe number 2, but more than likely going to be on the 3-4 line when it all shakes out.
Illinois' biggest non-conference win was over FAU, and FAU has somewhat stumbled here lately, lost on the road at South Florida. Now, that is a South Florida team playing phenomenal basketball right now, surging up the American standings, a team that I think will be dangerous if they can get into the field, certainly an auto bid or bust situation, though, for the Bulls. Andy, is there any trouble in paradise for FAU, or are they relatively secure, at least in making the tournament, despite some of these recent struggles?
Well, first, kudos to you on an excellent segue there from getting us from the Big Ten to FAU. But from both a quality of basketball standpoint and who knows what else. But anyway, for them, the remaining schedule is difficult. They host SMU, who's been a solid team. They play Memphis twice. Obviously, they've fallen off quite a bit. And they go to North Texas. So a lot of games there they probably should win, and the numbers suggest they should win. But some chances to take on other losses. They already have that weird resume with a loss in every quadrant and all of those things. The metrics right now still solid, 35.5 resume average, 31.0 quality average. So they're not really in any danger, but the end of the season is not maybe as easy as you might like it to be if you're them. And particularly in light of some of the struggles they've had defensively, you let some of these teams get hot, you put yourself in a difficult position there. So definitely safe for now, but pushing more toward that 7-8 range at the moment, and certainly could see that drop if they drop a handful of these games down the stretch.
I would say conventional wisdom is you want to stay out of that 8-9 game. You want to avoid a 1 seed. Although for FAU, last year wound up in that 8-9 game, and things shook out for them quite nicely with the Fairleigh Dickinson upset of Purdue, opened up the bracket for the Owls. Staying in the state of Florida here, one more team I wanted to mention quickly is the Florida Gators. They have surged up. I think T-Rank has them as a top 10 team here in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Have won 7 of 8, playing really good basketball, one on the road at Georgia. Brad, how high can these Gators climb?
Yeah, look, I think our team be maybe as high as like a 6 seed come the bitter end. I mean, the quarter one record is not the greatest in the world. They're at 3-7, but the other analytics are very strong, very healthy, and he got some opportunities on the horizon. He got Alabama not once but twice. And of course, one of those critical road matchup that if they can somehow emerge with a victory there would be a major boost to the resume. Got Vandy, Mizzou, should be able to handle business, especially those at home. You got Vandy again there on the road. Then you're at South Carolina. We already mentioned how brutal that Gamecocks rest of the season schedule is and for being a part of it. I hope this team makes it. They're a ton of fun to watch because every single game that I think I've watched them in from start to finish, just like 9 wins, and the overs have been cashing for your boy.
Well, they can certainly score, and I think they've really pieced it together here in the last couple of weeks. One of those teams, again, tons of portal names, took them some time to gel, but since then they have looked really, really good and certainly climbing up our board this week. As a reminder, folks, you can check out the full Fielding the 68 bracket on all of our social channels. That's Twitter, Instagram, etc. Find that whole Field of 68. We cannot reveal the entire thing on the show. It would take far too long. You guys would get very sick of hearing our voices, I promise. But before we wrap it up here, Andy, any games you're looking forward to this week, either from a bracket standpoint or just because you love college basketball like I do?
Lots of bubble games on Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll throw out a few of them here. Pitt at Wake is one. Pitt's kind of sneaking into the conversation a little bit, and Wake, I know, was a team that Brad mentioned on his first 4 out. You've got Butler at Villanova, both those teams right around and part of that Big East group there around the cut line, as are you got Providence Xavier on Wednesday, which is another big one for the Friars. Nebraska at IU we talked about because Nebraska needs a road win. And then you got Ole Miss, another one of our teams around the cut line, again at Mississippi State, who's not too far clear of the cut line at this point. So lots of big bubble games Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, and some other really like good top end games as well on the schedule. But the bubble ones catch my eye a little bit more this time of the season.
And Brad, bring us home for us. Games you're looking forward to this week from a bubble bracket standpoint.
Yeah, obviously Mississippi is just enormous, guys, and that's a game I'm going to certainly be glued to the tube on and watch. Outside of that, I'm consuming too much basketball, really, from start to finish. I think my nights are like 12 hours long. My bank account, hopefully by the end of the night, wells. I have actually Texas Southern tonight. Swaction! That's how much of a DJ I really am.
Well, hopefully everyone's bets win. Hopefully the bracket for all of our bracketologists gets a little bit more clear week to week as we approach Selection Sunday. We appreciate you all joining us. We'll be back on Friday evening, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, this has been Fielding 68. Appreciate you all joining us.